There's a moment barely noticeable to the unaware when a woman's lips part softly, her gaze holds for a beat too long, and her shoulders turn toward you just slightly, inviting something unspoken. Most men miss this moment, dismiss it, or overthink it. But that moment is the whisper before the fire. It's her body trying to speak without ever making a sound. Men have been trained to listen to words. We wait for confessions, affirmations, direct invitations. But we weren't taught to see. And because of that blindness, we walk past opportunity, connection, and seduction every day. So today, we're going to train your eyes not just to see bodies, but to decode signals. Not to manipulate, but to understand. This is not a trick. This is an awakening. Let's begin. 1. The invisible language. You've been blind this whole time. Think back. Think hard. You've likely already stood in front of a woman who wanted you, deeply, quietly, but unmistakably. Maybe it was in a bar, or during a conversation that felt strangely magnetic. There was something in her eyes, the way she shifted toward you, the way her voice dropped an octave when you spoke. But you brushed it off, told yourself you were imagining it, and you walked away. It wasn't just a missed opportunity. It was a missed lesson. Because her body wasn't silent, it was speaking in a language you were never taught to hear. This language isn't shouted. It doesn't beg. It doesn't make itself obvious to the unaware. But for the man who sees with intention, who listens with his eyes, it becomes unmistakable. A subtle glance. A touch too brief to be casual. A shift in her posture that opens, ever so slightly, in your direction. These are not coincidences. They're invitations. And here's the brutal truth. You've been blind. But that blindness ends today. Because once you learn how to read the unspoken, how to see what she's too afraid to say, you'll never be lost in the dark again. You'll walk into a room, and where most men see nothing, you'll see everything. That's the beginning of silent mastery. That's where the true Stoic way begins. If you're ready to become the man who no longer guesses, but knows, then subscribe to this channel. We don't teach pickup, we teach presence. We teach awareness, and we teach you how to never miss a moment again. 2. The subtle lips. Her desire is in her mouth. There's a certain silence that falls when you notice her lips, but not just how they look, not just the shade of red or the curve of her smile, but how they move, pause, and tremble in your presence. Most men overlook it. They assume she's fidgeting or nervous or adjusting herself for comfort. But in reality, she's speaking without speaking. She's drawing attention without words. When a woman bites her lips softly as you speak, when she gently runs her tongue along its edge, when her breathing grows slower, deeper, quieter, these aren't idle reflexes. They're primal instincts rising to the surface. Her body is calling yours. Her mouth is asking a question she doesn't dare verbalize. A parted lip in dim light. A glimmer of moisture catching your eye. The way she exhales when the silence falls. You don't need her to say a word because her lips already have. They are the doorway to her inner tension, to her hidden craving, to the spark she's testing to see if you're strong enough to ignite. And here's the tragedy. Many men have stood inches from a woman who was aching to be kissed and missed it completely because they were thinking instead of feeling, because they were too caught in their heads to see the tremble in her breath. When her lips speak, don't interrupt them with words. meet them with stillness, with understanding, with presence. 3. The hair ritual, seduction hidden in strands. Hair is more than beauty, it's a compass, a signal, a curtain and a spotlight, all in one. When a woman flips her hair over her shoulder, when she lets it fall just so across one eye, when she plays with its ends between her fingers as she listens to you speak, this isn't nervousness. It's direction. She's steering your gaze, guiding your attention from her words to her presence, from the conversation to the physical. Her hair becomes a brush, and your eyes the canvas. Each toss, each twist, each slow glide of fingers through strands, these are subtle strokes of seduction. But there's more. Sometimes she hides behind it, letting her hair fall like a shield between you. This isn't rejection, it's caution. It's a mix of desire and defense. She's inviting you in, while protecting the part of her that still remembers how it feels to be misunderstood, mishandled, misread. And if you're truly watching, not just looking, you'll see the pattern. You'll see when her hair is a lure and when it's a veil. And more importantly, you'll know how to respond, not with hunger, not with haste, but with presence. Every time she touches her hair, she's testing the room, testing you, asking silently, do you see me? Do you know how to move slower when everything in me wants to rush? The man who recognizes this, who sees the test and passes it with stillness, he becomes unforgettable. 4. The power of proximity, the space she invites you into. She won't declare it with words. She won't lean over and whisper, come closer. But her body, if you're paying attention, already has. When a woman feels drawn to you, the first thing she gives you is not her number or her heart, it's her space. Look at her feet. Are they pointed toward you? Her knees slightly angled your way? Her torso subtly aligned with yours even when her head faces forward? These are not accidents. This is orientation. This is instinct. Her entire being starts leaning not in distance, but in direction. And there's more. Watch her movements. Does she sip her drink after you sip yours? Does she cross her legs right after you shift your weight? This is mirroring. A biological echo. Her subconscious saying, you lead, I'll follow. It's not imitation. It's intimacy unfolding in real time. But here's where men make the mistake. They think they need to move first. They rush to close the distance. They chase, lean, reach, press. But she's already come halfway without moving an inch. You just didn't notice. Proximity is her first offering. Her silence is her second. And if you can hold that space confident, calm, centered, she do the rest. Because the man who doesn't need to chase is the one she finds herself stepping closer to. If you're starting to recognize these shifts not in words, but in posture, in silence, in mirrored stillness, then you're learning what most men never will. Subscribe to True Stoic Way, where you train your eye to see and your presence to lead. 5. The eyes that undress, the most dangerous signal. There's a kind of gaze that doesn't just look, it unravels. A woman's eyes, when filled with desire, don't need to speak. They cut. They strip. They scan. And if you're not prepared, they'll dismantle every layer of control you thought you had. Her stare is not a beam of light, it's a blade. A soft-edged razor that slides through your composure. She doesn't need to touch you to undress you. Her glance alone will do the work. She starts at your eyes, lingers, then lets her gaze drop slowly to your lips, down to your neck, to your chest. She's not lost in thought. She's mapping, reading, imagining that you are being assessed, piece by piece. Not in a rush, not with urgency, but with quiet, calculated heat. And in that moment, she's not wondering if she's wondering how you'll respond. The average man falters. He breaks eye contact, looks away, smiles nervously, says something to deflect. He escapes the moment because he doesn't know how to hold it. But the Stoic man, the man who is present, grounded, still he meets that gaze and doesn't blink. He doesn't leer. He doesn't shrink. He sees her seeing him, and he allows the energy to rise without flinching. That is mastery. That is control. And that is precisely what draws her deeper. If you've ever looked into her eyes and felt like the air disappeared, you're not imagining it. You're being studied. And now finally, you're learning how to see it for what it is. Subscribe to True Stoic Way, because the man who can hold her gaze without trembling is the man she'll never forget. 6. The touch that tests. When skin meets skin, a woman never touches without intention. It may feel accidental, like the brush of her fingers against your forearm, the fleeting graze near your chest when she leans in to laugh, the warm pressure of her palm on your upper arm during the story. But if you think it's random, you're already failing the test, because touch is her most ancient form of testing. It's subtle, gentle, innocent enough to be denied if called out, but deliberate enough to shift the entire energy between you. These aren't just movements. They are emotional hooks. She wants to know, are you receptive or reactive? Are you steady or startled? Will you interpret the gesture as invitation or ignore it as coincidence? When she touches, she's not always trying to escalate. Sometimes she's checking your frequency, matching her energy against your nervous system. She wants to feel what you do when you're close. Not physically, but emotionally. Do you tighten? Do you tremble? Do you lean in like a beggar or remain still like a mountain? Because if you freeze, she withdraws. If you flinch, she reconsiders. But if you hold your frame calm, present, unshaken, then her touch lingers longer next time. And next time, it's no longer a test. Many men think touch is the climax, but often it's just the audition. The moment where she gives you just enough tension to see whether you crumble under it or carry it like it weighs nothing at all. 7. The tilt in the breath. When she lets her guard down, there's a moment so quiet, so brief, that most men miss it entirely. It doesn't come with a word, a gesture, or even a touch. It comes with a breath, a subtle shift in the air, a gentle tilt of her head. And suddenly, without announcing it, she lets something down. When a woman feels safe in your presence, not convinced by words, but calmed by energy, her body begins to soften. Her head may tilt slightly to the side, exposing her neck. Her eyes widen, not in surprise, but in surrender. Her breath deepens, slows, sometimes catching, as if unsure whether to release or retreat. This is not seduction. Not yet. This is trust, fragile, unspoken, and easily broken. It's her nervous system loosening just enough to signal, I'm not afraid right now. And that, for a woman, is everything. But here's the truth. Most men ruin this moment. They rush in, they speak too quickly. They interpret the opening as invitation for action, not awareness. They react with appetite instead of stillness. And just like that, the moment disappears. The Stoic man, he doesn't chase the softness. He doesn't exploit the breath. He reflects it. He recognizes that what has opened before him is not permission, but a mirror, a test of his ability to remain present without possessing, a call not to conquer, but to hold. When her guard lowers, even for a second, she isn't asking for your desire. She's asking for your discernment. And only the man who hears the difference ever gets to stay long enough to see what lies beyond it. 8. From signal to seduction. When it's no longer subtle, there's a point when the whispers stop, and the room becomes charged with something unmistakable. No more guessing, no more decoding. It's not a game of subtle glances or brushes. Anymore, it's a shift in the atmosphere, thick and deliberate. Like the air just before a storm. She leans in not to hear you better, but to feel you closer. Her voice drops not from fatigue, but because she wants you to lean in too. Her eyes don't dart around anymore. They lock on you, heavy, focused, hungry. You feel it in your spine. The tension is no longer soft, it's pressing. She's no longer sending signals, she's embodying them. Her whole presence is louder than words could ever be. And at that moment, she doesn't need to say, "I want you," because her body has already screamed it. This is the edge, the threshold, the line where most men stumble, not because they don't feel it, but because they don't know who they are in it. They rush or freeze or second guess, and in doing so, they shatter the very moment they were being offered, because this isn't a reward, it's a final filter. She's giving you her clearest cue and watching what you do with it. You either rise with calm presence, restrained power, and unshaken clarity, or you fall by chasing what's already moving toward you. In this moment, there's no middle ground. You don't get to maybe your way through it. You either see her, hold her gaze, own your breath, pass the test, or you prove she was wrong to offer it in the first place. 9. Why most men still miss it, and how you don't have to. The signals were there. They always were. But most men missed them, not because they were weak, but because they were distracted, too trapped in their own inner noise, too busy chasing what they thought they wanted to realize they were being invited into what they truly needed. Desire, when it blinds, makes you impulsive. And when you're impulsive, you don't see, you react, you assume. You lean in too fast. You speak when silence was the answer. You touch when presence was enough. And the moment so delicate, so brief is gone. Because the art of receiving a signal is not just in seeing it. It's in having the self-control to sit with it. To not rush, not pounce, not prove, but simply to witness it with calm discernment. This is where the Stoic man rises above the rest. Not by suppressing desire, but by mastering it. Not by overthinking, but by undisturbing his mind long enough to perceive what others miss. Be still. To see, be silent to hear. That is the Stoic way. Because in stillness you observe more. And in silence, you hear the things she never dares to say aloud. Recognizing the signs is only the beginning. Anyone with enough exposure can be trained to detect a glance, a breath, a touch. But knowing how to respond with clarity, with power, held in check, with no need to perform, That's where most men fail. And that's where you begin to separate. From boys, from noise, from the reactive, into something rare. Into something remembered. 10. A woman's silence is never silent. She has always been speaking, not through words, not through declarations or confessions, but through stillness, through breath, through the placement of a hand, the flicker of an eye, the way her body leaned just slightly toward yours before she caught herself. You were waiting for her to say something, but she already did. The problem was never her silence. It was your blindness. A woman's silence is never truly silent. It is a song played on a frequency only the attuned can hear. And the man who is truly present doesn't need subtitles. He doesn't ask, was that a sign? Because he knows. He sees. And he acts not out of instinct, but out of awareness. This is what separates the impulsive from the intentional, the distracted from the disciplined, the man who chases chaos from the man who carries stillness. Because when she drops her guard, even for a second, what she's offering isn't her body, it's her trust. And only the man who can feel without fumbling, who can wait without weakening, who can see without needing deserves that trust. So if you've missed signs in the past, you're not alone. But now you see what you couldn't before. And if you're ready to stop reacting and start reading, truly reading, then you're already walking the path. Drop a comment below. What signal did you once ignore, and what will you never miss again? And if you're ready to learn the unspoken language of women, power, and stillness, subscribe to True Stoic Way, where silence speaks louder than seduction, and presence is everything.